I decided to visit my wife at her job as a CEO on the same day my life collapsed. It wasn't planned. Nothing in my life was planned anymore. By sunrise in San Jose, California, my construction business was gone. A single investor pulled out overnight. Accounts were frozen, contracts canceled. Within hours, the bank took the house I had lived in for 27 years. The house where my son learned to walk. The house where my wife once told me we would grow old together. By noon, I was officially homeless. My hands were shaking, so I folded them together in my lap. My chest felt tight, like I'd been holding my breath for hours without noticing. Before I continue, tell me, what city are you watching from? I want to know how far this story reaches. I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel, trying to remember how a man with decades of work behind him could lose everything so fast. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt hollow. There was only one place left to go. I remember thinking this couldn't really be happening, that maybe I'd wake up and everything would still be where I left it. My son's place in Fremont. I rehearsed what I would say the entire drive. Just a few days. I'll figure something out. I won't be a burden. When Daniel opened the door, he looked uncomfortable. Not surprised, not happy, just tense. "Dad," he said, blocking the doorway slightly. "I just need a couple of nights," I said quietly. Things fell apart faster than I expected. He swallowed hard, eyes darting behind him, then back to me. "My wife isn't here." That was it. No "come in," no "are you okay," no "let's talk." Just that sentence. The door closed gently, but the sound felt heavier than a slam. That night I slept in my car in a grocery store parking lot. The engine off, the windows cracked, the cold creeping in through the seams like it knew I was weak. I watched families load groceries into warm cars. I watched lights turn off in nearby apartments. I pulled my coat tighter and tried not to think about how my son was eating dinner somewhere without me. Sometime near dawn, my phone buzzed. I almost ignored it. No one called me anymore, but the number wasn't familiar. "Mr. Carter?" a calm professional voice asked. "Yes," I said, my voice hoarse. "My name is James Whitmore. I'm a butler calling from Palo Alto." I almost laughed. A bitter, exhausted sound. "A what?" I asked. "My employer has requested to see you immediately," he continued. "He is very ill. Before he signs his will." I sat up straight. "There must be a mistake," I said. "You have the wrong person." "No, sir," the man replied calmly. He was very specific in his instructions. I looked around the empty parking lot, at my fogged windows, at the life I no longer recognized. "Who is your employer?" I asked. There was a brief pause. "A man you saved once," the butler said. "A billionaire who never forgot it." And in that moment, cold, broke, and sleeping in my car, I realized my life wasn't over yet. Not even close. To understand how I ended up sleeping in my car outside a grocery store in San Jose, you need to understand who I was before everything fell apart. My name is Michael Carter. I'm 56 years old. For most of my life, I was a builder, literally and figuratively. I ran a mid-sized construction company that specialized in commercial renovations across Oakland, San Mateo, and parts of Silicon Valley. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't rich, but I was stable, respected, the kind of man banks trusted and employees depended on. I built my company from the ground up. Missed birthdays, missed vacations, missed quiet mornings at home. I told myself it was temporary, that one day all the sacrifice would pay off. My wife, Evelyn, used to say she understood. We'd been married for 32 years. She was sharp, ambitious, and always wanted more than the life we had. When our son Daniel was young, Evelyn stayed home for a while. I worked longer hours so she wouldn't have to worry about money. When she said she wanted to go back to school, I supported it, paid the tuition, covered the bills. Took on more projects so she could focus. After school came corporate consulting, long days, business trips, new confidence. I adjusted my life around her schedule without thinking twice. Then, just over a year ago, she landed a position that changed everything. CEO. Her company's headquarters were in San Francisco. Glass walls, corner offices, assistants, private elevators. The lifestyle came fast. New clothes I bought on my card. A new schedule that didn't include me. New priorities that always came first. I told myself I was proud of her, and part of me truly was. I just didn't realize that while I was still carrying us, she was already learning how to walk away. She stopped asking how my day went, stopped coming home on time, stopped answering calls when she said she would. When I asked if everything was okay, she'd smile thinly and say, "Michael, I can't slow down for you right now. This role requires focus." I believed her. I always believed her. Our son Daniel lived with his wife Laura in Fremont. Daniel was never unkind to me, but over the past year he'd grown distant. Short calls, surface-level conversations. He always said work was busy, life was hectic. I didn't realize until much later that distance isn't always accidental. Sometimes it's practiced. The last time Evelyn and I shared a real conversation was 3 weeks before my business collapsed. I had mentioned concerns about a major investor who seemed hesitant. She didn't look up from her phone. "You should have diversified earlier," she said flatly. "That's on you." That stung, but I let it go. The night my accounts froze, I tried calling her. Straight to voicemail. I left a message explaining everything. How fast it happened, how scared I was, how I just needed her support. She never called back. By the time I showed up at Daniel's door in Fremont, I was already broken in ways I didn't fully understand yet. I wasn't just homeless. I was displaced. From my marriage, from my role, from my identity. When Daniel said, "My wife isn't here," it wasn't the words that hurt most. It was what he didn't say. He didn't say, "Come in anyway." He didn't say, "You can sleep on the couch." He didn't say, "Let me help." He looked past me like he was afraid of being seen helping. That night in my car, I replayed everything. Every argument I brushed aside. Every silence I ignored. Every time Evelyn chose her phone over my voice. I realized something chilling as the hours dragged on. No one was surprised I had fallen. Not Evelyn. Not Daniel. It was as if my collapse had been expected. I had gone to visit my wife at her job as a CEO on the same day my life collapsed. I still believed that being her husband mattered. Her office looked like everything she loved. Glass walls, soft chairs, quiet power, a life built with money I had earned, risks I had taken, years I had worked. I told her the bank had taken the house that morning. She didn't react the way a wife should. No shock, no worry, no question about where I would sleep. Instead, she slowly picked up her phone. "I'll call you back," she said to someone, then paused and added, "No, actually, stay on." She turned slightly away from me and made another call. "Yes, I need a new apartment," she said calmly. "Yes, today. I'll take the one with the concierge. No, just one bedroom." Then she added very clearly, "For only me." I stood there, not understanding what I was hearing. She hung up and finally looked at me. "I can't stay in chaos," she said. "I need security." I reminded her quietly that the life she enjoyed came from my work, the house, the trips, the clothes, the comfort. She didn't deny it. She shrugged and said, "I like the lifestyle. That doesn't mean I'm going down with it." Then she said the sentence I will never forget. "I'm not dragging a sinking ship with me." She picked up her bag, the one I bought her, and walked toward the door. She stopped, turned back once, and made sure I understood. "You're not coming with me." My chest felt empty. As if remembering something minor, she looked at her phone again. "I'll tell my lawyer to prepare the divorce papers," she said. "If you can't get your act together, this marriage is pointless." Then she walked out. No tears, no regret, no goodbye. That was the moment I understood the truth. She never loved me. She loved what my money gave her. And the second the house was gone, she was already packing her future without me. That was when I finally understood why no one had been surprised by my fall. When the butler called me at dawn, my first instinct was disbelief. But as I sat there shivering, watching the sky lighten over San Jose, another thought crept in, one that made my chest tighten. What if this wasn't random? What if the timing wasn't coincidence? Evelyn's rise, my fall, the distance, the silence. And now a stranger claiming a dying billionaire wanted to see me before signing his will. I didn't know who this man was. I didn't know why he remembered me, but I knew one thing with certainty as I turned the key in my car and followed the butler's address toward Palo Alto. I drove south toward Palo Alto, past glass offices and quiet neighborhoods that looked untouched by failure. Every mile made me feel smaller, out of place, like a man who had slipped through a crack in the world. The mansion appeared at the end of a long private road in Atherton. Gates opened silently. Manicured lawns stretched farther than I could see. This wasn't just wealth. This was a different universe. James Whitmore, the butler, led me inside without asking a single question. Marble floors, soft light, the smell of medicine and old money. "Please wait here," he said gently. "Mr. Hale will see you shortly." Mr. Hale. The name meant nothing to me. A moment later, the butler returned and guided me into a quiet bedroom overlooking the gardens. A frail man lay propped up in bed, oxygen humming softly beside him. His eyes were sharp despite his condition. "Michael Carter," he said slowly. "You look exactly how I imagined." I swallowed. "I'm sorry, sir. I think there's been a mistake." He smiled faintly. "No mistake. You saved my life in Oakland 34 years ago. A construction site. Faulty scaffolding. Everyone else froze. You didn't." I remembered it clearly. A steel beam collapsed onto a small car. A man was trapped inside. The driver's door was crushed shut. I ran to him and reached through the broken window. I told him my name and asked for his. He couldn't answer, but he squeezed my hand. His legs were pinned, so I couldn't pull him out. I pressed my jacket against his side to slow the bleeding and told him to keep looking at me. He tried to stay awake. His eyes kept closing. Every time they did, I spoke louder. I told him help was coming. I told him to breathe with me. I counted his breaths out loud so he wouldn't stop. I sent others to keep calling for help while I stayed right there. I didn't try to move him. I didn't let go. I stayed until the ambulance arrived and the paramedics took over. He was alive when they drove away. That is what I did for him. I tried to find you for years, he continued. When I finally did, I decided to wait. I wanted to see what kind of man you truly were. I didn't know what to say. And what did you see? I asked. He looked at me carefully. I saw a man who built something honest, a man who stood by his family, and I saw how quickly the people closest to him stepped back when he fell. His words landed harder than he knew. Michael, he said quietly, I'm dying. I don't have children, and before I sign my will, I wanted to look you in the eye. Before I could respond, the door opened behind me. A man, obviously a lawyer. The man in the dark suit closed the door softly behind him. No rush, no drama. He set a leather folder on the small table near the bed and nodded once respectfully toward Mr. Hale. Sir, we're ready. Mr. Hale looked at me again, studying my face as if committing it to memory. Michael, he said, his voice thin but steady, this is Andrew Cole, my attorney. He's been with me for 26 years. He knows everything. The lawyer turned to me. His expression wasn't curious or judgmental, just professional. Mr. Carter, he said, I'm sorry for the circumstances under which we're meeting. I didn't respond. I still felt like a visitor in someone else's life. Mr. Hale shifted slightly, wincing, then waved a weak hand. Andrew, tell him, he said. It's time. The lawyer opened the folder. 34 years ago, he began. My client was not the man the world knows today. He was a junior partner in a small investment firm. He had money, yes, but not power, not protection. Mr. Hale smiled faintly. I was reckless, he added. I drove myself, thought I was untouchable. Andrew continued. The accident in Oakland nearly killed him. The impact caused internal bleeding and severe trauma to his lower body. The doctors later confirmed that if help had been delayed even a few more minutes, he would not have survived. My chest tightened. You stayed, Mr. Hale said softly. Everyone else stepped back. You stayed. I nodded once. That was all. I tried to find you afterward, he went on. But life moved fast. Hospitals, recovery, then opportunity. By the time I had the resources to look, you were already gone. The lawyer turned a page. Years later, he said, Mr. Hale quietly tracked Mr. Carter's life. Not to interfere, not to help, simply to observe. I felt my stomach drop. You watched me? I asked. Mr. Hale didn't look away. Yes, he said. Not closely. But enough. He paused, then added, I wanted to know if the man who stayed with a stranger would stay the same when no one was watching. The room was silent except for the low hum of oxygen. I saw your company grow, he continued. Slowly, honestly. I saw you pay your workers through recessions, decline shortcuts, take responsibility when projects went wrong. I swallowed. And I saw, he said, how quickly everything disappeared. Andrew spoke again. Over the last 12 months, Mr. Hale became aware of several financial movements surrounding Mr. Carter's business, specifically the sudden withdrawal of a key investor. My heart began to pound. That investor, Andrew said carefully, was indirectly connected to your wife's firm. The words didn't land at first. What? I asked. Mr. Hale closed his eyes briefly. I didn't want to believe it either, he said, but the timing was too precise. Andrew continued. The withdrawal was legal, strategic, but not accidental. It occurred shortly after confidential internal discussions at Mrs. Carter's company regarding risk exposure and asset distancing. My hands clenched. She knew, I said quietly. Mr. Hale opened his eyes. She prepared, he corrected gently. Before the fall, the room felt smaller. Andrew turned another page. In the same period, Mrs. Carter's legal counsel began preliminary divorce consultations. No papers were filed, but drafts were prepared. I felt something cold settle in my chest. And Daniel, I asked, though I already feared the answer. Andrew hesitated for the first time. Your son, he said, was advised by his wife's family to maintain distance, not to sever ties, but not to offer assistance that could complicate future financial separation. I exhaled slowly. So that was it. Not fear, not confusion, calculation. I didn't bring you here to hurt you, Mr. Hale said. I brought you here because I'm running out of time. He nodded to Andrew. Read it. The lawyer adjusted his glasses. Mr. Hale has amended his will, he said, effective immediately. The majority of his personal estate, including controlling interests, properties, and liquid assets, will be transferred to Michael Carter. The words echoed in the room. Whispered. Mr. Hale lifted a finger. Not as charity, he said firmly. As succession. I shook my head. I don't understand, I said. Why me? He looked at me with something close to relief. Because you didn't save me hoping to be repaid, he said. And because you lost everything without becoming cruel. He paused, then added, and because the people who abandoned you did so believing you were finished. Andrew closed the folder. The transfer will occur upon Mr. Hale's passing, he said. However, effective today, Mr. Carter is granted interim authority and access. Enough to stand again. I sat back slowly, overwhelmed. Mr. Hale reached for my hand. His grip was weak, but deliberate. Michael, he said, wealth doesn't reveal character. It exposes it. I've seen who you are without it. His eyes searched mine. Now I want to see what you become with it. I felt something shift inside me. Not excitement, not triumph, clarity. Outside the window, the afternoon light stretched across the gardens. For the first time in months, I wasn't bracing for loss. I was standing at the edge of truth. And somewhere beyond these walls, the people who had walked away from me were still living their lives, unaware that the ground beneath them was about to change. If you love stories of betrayal, hidden truths, and justice that strikes when no one expects it, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. New stories drop every day, each one darker, sharper, and more unforgettable than the last. Now, back to the story. Mr. Hale passed 3 days later. There were no cameras, no dramatic announcements, just a quiet statement released by his office before the markets opened. Most people skimmed it without interest. Another billionaire gone, another transfer of wealth. But inside a glass tower in San Francisco, Evelyn Carter read the headline twice. She read the headline once, then again, then slowly sat down. Michael Carter, successor and primary beneficiary. She stared at the screen, certain it had to be a mistake. Billionaires didn't leave their empires to men like me, to husbands who had lost everything, to failures she had already moved on from. She refreshed the page. Still there. Michael Carter, successor and primary beneficiary. She refreshed the page, opened another source, then another. The result didn't change. Her assistant knocked lightly and entered, pale. Evelyn, legal is asking if we have exposure. Exposure to what? She snapped, standing. The assistant hesitated. The investor withdrawal last quarter. The one tied to Mr. Hale's private holdings. Evelyn felt the room tilt. What about it? They've frozen communications, the assistant said, and Mr. Hale's attorney has requested copies of all correspondence. The confidence she had worn like armor began to crack. By noon, calls were coming in from people who hadn't spoken to her in weeks. By evening, none of them were returning her messages. The doors she had walked through so easily were suddenly guarded. Across the bay in Fremont, Daniel found out differently. A coworker showed him the news on a phone during lunch. Hey, the man said casually. Isn't that your dad? Daniel laughed at first. Then he read the name. His appetite vanished. He drove home in silence, replaying the night I stood at his door. My voice, my stillness. The way I hadn't argued. He realized something too late. I hadn't come to ask. I had come because I had nowhere else to go. That evening, both of them reached out. Evelyn didn't just send one message. She sent paragraphs. I was scared. I made a mistake. We built everything together. You don't throw away 32 years. She called it reconciliation. She talked about memories, about loyalty, about forgiveness. She said she wanted to come home. I read every word. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel pulled back by them. I replied with one sentence. You didn't want me when I had nothing. You don't get me now that I do. I blocked her number after that. Daniel called, then called again. That evening, Daniel called. I didn't answer. Not because I wanted him to suffer, but because I needed time to decide what kind of man I was going to be next. I was 56 years old, too old to rebuild recklessly, too young to live the rest of my life surrounded by people who loved me only when I was useful. When Daniel finally reached me the next day, his voice was unsteady. Dad, I'm sorry, he said. I should have let you in. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I thought helping you would ruin my future, he continued. I was wrong. I believed him. But belief doesn't erase consequence. I forgive you, I said quietly. But forgiveness doesn't mean we pretend thing happened. There was a pause. I won't cut you off, I continued. But I won't carry you either. Whatever you build from here, you build yourself. He exhaled, slow and shaky. I understand, he said. And for the first time in a long while, I believed that he did. Daniel did not inherit wealth from me. What he inherited was something harder, accountability. Evelyn reached out later, first with messages, then with calls, then with a request to meet. When we finally sat across from each other, she searched my face for something familiar. Control, regret, hope. She found none. I made decisions based on fear, she said. I didn't think you'd recover. I know, I replied. She waited. I didn't fill the silence. I thought security came from money, she said softly. And I learned, I answered, that love doesn't disappear when money does. Only convenience does. That was the moment she understood. Not what she had lost financially, but what she had walked away from emotionally. The divorce did not go the way Evelyn expected. She tried to claim partnership. She tried to claim contribution. She tried to claim that my rise was built on a foundation we shared. The court disagreed. What I inherited was not marital property. It came after separation. It came from a man she had never known. She walked away with exactly what she brought into the end of the marriage. Nothing more. Weeks later, life settled into something new. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. That was when I met Clara. She didn't know my past. She didn't ask about money. She didn't look me up. She listened when I spoke. She laughed easily. We took our time. We married quietly. No headlines, no spectacle. 2 years later, we had twins, a boy and a girl. I watched them sleep in the same room, breathing in rhythm, and understood something I never had before. This was the family I had waited my whole life for. Not built on fear, not built on convenience, built on choice. And as I looked ahead, not behind, I realized something quietly extraordinary. The family I lost taught me what not to accept. The new family I built is based on something stronger. Choice. Truth. I spent time rebuilding what mattered. I rebuilt my company. Not bigger, just better. Fewer projects, fairer contracts, people who stayed even when things were hard. I paid my workers well. I slept at night. That mattered more than growth. Daniel and I spoke occasionally, not like before, not pretending. We met for coffee, talked about work, about life, about mistakes we didn't rush to fix. Trust didn't snap back into place. It grew back quietly, the way real things do. He never asked for money. I never offered. That boundary saved us. Evelyn became part of my past in the cleanest way possible, without bitterness, without longing, just distance. I wished her no harm. If stories of betrayal and hidden truths keep you thinking long after they end, click the story showing on your screen now.